Hello and welcome. I'm Perrin Desports, one of the founders at Tusk Partners. Welcome to our webinar on selling your $1 million dental practice, DSO or solo buyer, which is the best? All of us at Tusk appreciate your time and interest, so let's dive right in. I'll start by giving you a quick overview of exactly who we are and what we do so you'll understand a bit more about our background. That's me in the middle. I'm Perrin Desports, and those are my two partners, Diwakar Sinha and Kevin Kumbas. Kevin got his start in investment banking with Wachovia Securities. After business school, he spent 4 years with the McGill Hill Group here in Charlotte, North Carolina, focused on practice transitions and valuation. After leaving the McGill Hill Group, he did 4 years with Affordable Care Incorporated, in their DSO operations and roll-up strategy. Diwakar is the banker in the group. He spent the last 15 years of his working career lending money to dentists all over the United States. Most recently, he was vice president of sales for East West Bank out of Pasadena. East West was the preeminent lender in the emerging market DSO space of dentistry. And I've got 15 years of distribution experience, having run 3 different operations for Patterson Dental Company. There are 2 facets of our business here at Tusk. The first is an online brokerage website. Think Zillow.com meets dental practice brokerage. Until now, if you wanted to sell your dental practice, you basically had 2 options. You can pay a broker 10% to sell your practice, or you can go it alone and do it in a for sale by owner model, neither of which are a really good value proposition. We leverage modern technology to reduce our costs and pass those savings on to our sellers, and we charge 5% commission to do that. You'll see that our listings feature beautiful professional photographs, informative graphical displays of clinical, financial, and operational successes, and much, much more. We think more engaged buyers hopefully means more offers and potentially a higher selling price for our sellers. It's a wonderful value proposition. You can see more examples of our listings and get further details at tuskbrokerage.com. The second facet of our business, and really what we're going to dive into more tonight, is on the Tusk Partners side of the business. This is focused more squarely on group practices and DSOs, especially those in the emerging market. Think 5 to 25 locations. Your legal structure is critically important, and you need to define it early on in your DSO because it impacts equity and exit considerations as you scale your business. Debt structure is something that not too many emerging market DSOs consider until it's too late. Traditional lenders typically pull back around 4 locations and roughly $2 million in debt exposure. So we help them find alternative sources of capital. You can learn more from our white paper on our website called Debt Financing in the Emerging DSO. We offer buy-side advisory services and sell-side advisory services. Most DSOs will grow through acquisitions, so they frequently come to us and ask them to find targets to acquire. Then we do some quantitative modeling to determine the upside of the acquisition as it fits within their DSO. On the sell-side advisory, this is really more of a go-to-market strategy. It's about a 3 to 6 month process where we prepare the business for sale operationally and financially, trying to show it in its best light. And then we take it to market to find the best partner or acquirer, be it private equity or an enterprise level DSO. To go from small to medium to large takes a little bit of hand-holding, and our strategic consulting offering is geared toward that end. Our engagements typically last about 6 to 36 months, and they're designed to help a DSO grow and scale their business to the point of preparing for sale. You can find more information about these services as well at tusk-partners.com. So what might the future look like for us in the dental industry? What's the coming decade going to look like? So based on the average debt load, the typical young doctor cannot afford to buy the average dental practice today. They basically have to buy the $1 million practice that is the industry sweet spot. A DSO is also most interested in the $1 million practice due to revenue, profitability, minimal provider or procedure risk, and still a lot of potential upside. So now we're in a case of supply and demand. How many million-dollar practices are in the market for sale, and who would be willing to pay more for that million-dollar practice? A typical young dentist or a DSO? Well, let's take a look. Here are some seller options. The million-dollar practice. You're going to sell your million-dollar practice. It puts off clinical production of about $700,000 and hygiene production of $300,000. You have an overhead rate of roughly 60%, so benefit to owner is $400,000. This practice, if sold through a broker, is probably going to be valued at roughly 80% of revenue, so it's going to sell for about $800,000. And if you're a young dentist buying out a senior dentist through a bank loan, you're going to write them a check at closing for $800,000. Not a bad day for senior seller to walk off with 800 grand in their pocket. But what does that look like from a DSO perspective? Well, a DSO is a little bit different, and they're willing to offer a little bit more at the point of close. Specifically, a DSO is probably willing to offer more like 100% of revenue, meaning the full $1 million for a $1 million practice. Here's how they're going to structure it. They're going to give the seller $800,000 cash at closing, and they're going to defer two $100,000 earnouts in year 2 and year 3. They want the seller to stay on board. They want that good transfer of goodwill. They want the patients to stick. They want the staff to stay on board. They want to maintain the business as a going concern without any disruption. They want the current owner to work in the business for as long as they want, but for a minimum of typically 3 years. Now, when the owner sells the business to the DSO and agrees to work for 3 to 5 years, of course, he or she is going to get paid for that clinical production. This year, the $1 million practice generated $700,000 of clinical production, and our seller got paid $210,000 for his or her clinical production. They also earned benefits. When you add their clinical compensation with their benefits and the $800,000 they got at closing for the sale of their practice, they netted over $1 million in year 1 working for the DSO. In year 2, the DSO is going to ask that you increase your revenue by some amount. We said 5%. That 5% trickles through this entire example, and at the bottom, they get paid clinical compensation. Now the employee, the former seller, gets paid clinical compensation of almost $221,000. They still get benefits. Oh, and because they met the production criteria, they get their first $100,000 installment from the original sale of the practice. They take home $353,000 in year 2 working for the DSO. Year 3, it's much the same. Grow at 5%, get paid your clinical compensation based on production, they get paid benefits, and they get the second $100,000 installment for a total take-home of $366,000. As long as they're an employee in good standing and continue to do good work, they can work indefinitely. So in this case, our seller works year 4 and gets paid for that, and works year 5 and gets paid for that. And when you look at a total 5-year earnout, our seller sells his or her $1 million practice for over $2.3 million. Now, which would you rather have, $2.3 million or $800,000 in a walkaway? More than likely, these $1 million practices are going to be sold to DSOs because DSOs are willing to pay more, and the senior seller has the option of staying on and not having to take mandatory immediate retirement. The practices that are in the dental industry sweet spot are going to be fewer and fewer in number as the supply dwindles. They're going to be highly coveted for purchase, meaning they're going to be in high demand. And most are going to be acquired by a DSO because they can simply afford to pay more. We thank you for your time, and we hope we've shared something worth learning. We also hope you'll keep in touch with us. If you have further questions or would like to continue the discussion on this topic or any other related to the dental industry, please feel free to contact Kevin, DeWalker, or myself directly. All the best and continued success.